You're listening to the Hello World Podcast number 16. My name is Sean Wildermuth of Wilder Minds, and I am your host. The Hello World Podcast is where you can hear from some of your favorite developers, authors, speakers about how they got started in this business. We go way back to their first computer, their first code experience, and their first job. This week I had the great pleasure of talking to Lars Klint. Lars Klint is a fellow Pluralsight author, and I got to catch up with him at the Pluralsight Author Summit in Utah this year. Lars Klint suffers from a split personality, as some would say. On one hand, he is a passionate programmer using the Microsoft stack through .NET and C#. On the other hand, he is a mad car guy. Lars loves to get his hands dirty and maintain his fleet of classic and off-road cars. When not in front of a phone, a laptop, a desktop, or other gadget, he is out in the bush getting muddy or on a car club cruise. Lars has so far published 2 courses on Pluralsight, building Windows Phone apps that stand out, and Windows Phone testing and error management. As a frequent blogger, Lars has contributed articles to the Kyandra IT blog, Nokia's Develop Up portal, and his own blog at clint.co, often presenting arguments that are not quite the mainstream, but with a dash of humor and a smidgen of cheekiness. If you want to ask Lars a question, suggest a blog idea, sell a car, etc., shoot him an email or follow him on Twitter at Lars Klint. In this episode, I talked to Lars about the vagaries of the Windows Phone environment. I talked to him about what it's like being a Dane in Australia and what exactly he did to get kicked out of Denmark, as well as how he got started in this business. Let's take a listen. I'd like to welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Lars Klint. I keep on being afraid I'm going to mispronounce it.
No, it's all good. You say it very American, but that's okay. I'm used to that. So,
how would you say it then?
Lars Klint.
Oh, Lars Klint.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's okay. I'm used to it.
I can pretend that my old Dutch was coming back and pretend I know you're Danish, but it's closer than American.
Yeah, there's a lot of in it. I don't use my middle name for that reason. So.
Oh, really? Yeah. That's interesting. And you're living in Melbourne, right?
I live in Melbourne in Australia, yeah. I've been there for 10 years now, just over 10 years.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know, I'm somewhere in between Danish and Aussie, I think.
I wasn't sure when I first saw your blog. I was like, is he Danish Australian or Australian Danish?
Yeah. Well, a bit of both. You're never going to lose your heritage, but
I'm pretty sure you're exactly the opposite side of the planet from where you're from, right?
Almost. Apparently New Zealand, if you take like a pin and stick it through the globe, it goes to New Zealand, yeah.
Wow.
So I'm about 2 hours from the furthest away I could be. Yeah.
I don't want to know what you did in Denmark to have to escape that far.
I can't tell you.
Okay, I thought you might not be able to. So when you were growing up, did you have, a first computer? Or
I did, yeah.
How did that work?
I was probably always interested in computers, and I never really got into the whole Atari thing. I was a little bit young for that.
You mean like the video game or the machines?
Video games, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I got my first paper route when I was 8, and all of the money that I made from that went to a Commodore 64.
Nice.
The old bread box.
Yep. Well, actually, I don't think in the States they were red, but yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. It was brown. It had brown keys.
Yeah, but the box was red?
No. Bread box, not red. Bread
box. Yeah. No, exactly the same.
Yeah, exactly. With the 4 function keys or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. And the tape player that you had to adjust with a screwdriver and all that. It was all good fun.
Mine first was a VIC-20, but I spent most of my time on a 64 through most of my childhood. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and I just remember getting games from your friends, was copying it on tape. It was just so weird. Had little books with the count on it. The next game starts at 286, and yeah, that was all cool. And
then hope the tape doesn't stretch.
Yeah, exactly. Or that, I don't know, for some reason they just kept going out of sync, so you had to fiddle with them all the time, get the lines straight and all that.
It's crazy. So
it was pretty good fun though.
Yeah.
And then I went on to Amiga 500.
Nice. That's the natural progression.
Exactly. And I got the whole thing for that. I had like 2 extra disk drives, and
Did you have the toaster?
The hard drive. Yeah. Is that what I mean? Yeah, I had a 20 gig hard drive, and I had extra 512K of RAM.
Wow.
It was flying.
You were.
I know.
And you still do, you record all your Pluralsight courses on the Amiga,
No, that's
right?
on the 64.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Amiga's a bit fast for that.
It is. Screen cap is very hard on the Amiga.
And that was mostly for gaming. I always found it interesting how the hell they built these things, but I didn't understand it. And then I sort of got off computers for a while. Did a little bit at school, like sort of when you're 14, 15, 16.
So sort of what we would think of as high school?
Yeah. In Denmark, you go from year 0, it's called now, or it was kindy, to year 10. And then you go on to something sort of equivalent of high school, where you finish when you're 19 or 18. Okay. So it's a little bit slightly different. And then you go into uni.
Oh, okay.
So I did a year in Canada when I was 17.
Nice.
And there...
As your first time to escape,
that's
when
right.
you found out Canada wasn't far enough.
It's cold enough.
It is cold enough.
9 months of winter. And then
but there's 3 months of autumn, so...
That's true. The weird thing is to have this thing called a Chinook.
I don't know what that is.
So in January, it'll be minus 30 Celsius, whatever that is. It's probably about minus 30 Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it's about 32 or something like that. Yeah.
It's really cold. And then in the space of 12 hours, this wind comes in called the Chinook, and it's 10 degrees Celsius.
Wow.
So that's like, what is that? That's 50 degrees or something Fahrenheit.
50 degrees, yeah.
And everything just melts, and everything looks like spring, and you go, oh man, that was awesome, yeah. And then as soon as you get comfortable with it, it goes back to being horribly cold again. So yeah, that was... It's
to break dreams.
I know, exactly, yeah. And it did. It was so, but in Canada, the school I was in was Bowden Grandview High School, and they were a test subject or test school for the state of Alberta, so the province of Alberta. Got to get this right. The province of Alberta,
because we'll get letters.
Yeah, no, exactly. Death threats. It's provinces. And
yeah,
sorry, boot that. And then in that school was a test school for high speed internet. So this was satellite at the time. This was, what was that, 96, 97?
Oh, okay.
And because of that, they had this enormous, was it ITS or something they call it? Infrastructure Technology Center or something, ITC. And that allows all the students to dabble with internet.
Oh, nice.
So that was my first real exposure to internet. And I built my first website.
Nice.
So I basically bought an HTML4 book and went through it from page 1. And I remember a light coming on when I realized that the browser was not the internet. It was a piece of software that interpreted the HTML. It was a big moment.
Like, wow.
I know. And from there,
you're ahead of most computer users at this point.
Exactly.
There was a great interview with people on the street asking what operating system they use, and most of them said Google, because of course that's what they see. They open their browser and they say Google.
It says Google.
They don't even know, they don't even know it's a browser. They think that's how you...
Yeah, exactly.
That's the computer.
That was Pluralsight did a video on what is DevOps, I think.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. People go, is it cake? Whatever they say. No one has a clue, right? And that's the industry we're in. No one knows what we're doing.
No.
My partner thinks I'm just a code monkey. I sit there pushing buttons, which is what she sees.
Yeah.
So, and then from then on, I kept an active interest in computing.
So HTML, you were doing HTML. Were you also doing like JavaScript to run it, or was it just content?
It was just HTML, and I built a site for the family I lived with.
Nice.
Lived with in Canada. They had a business that sold cattle oilers, which is a thing with ropes that oil trickles down, and cattle go through this thing and rub their back on it.
Oh, nice!
And it prevents fleas and ticks and all that stuff. So he invented that thing, and so I built a website for him with copious amounts of animated GIFs and that sort of stuff.
Please tell me you used a blink tag at some point.
Oh, yeah. Marquee and blink in one. It was beautiful. And lots of spinning new tags. I don't know. That seemed to be the thing.
It was.
Yeah.
In 96? Yeah, that was definitely the thing.
Oh, man. I think back of it. Holy crap.
I used to do an example in one of my Silverlight courses where we would build a blink tag. Yeah, because it was a way to teach animation and stuff. And I said, but don't ever, if I see this in your code, you're in trouble.
Exactly.
It's just an example.
NSA will find you.
Yeah.
Sorry. You're probably listening in now.
ASN. So you built that for the family you were living with, and that was like an exchange program with.
It was.
Okay, nice.
So I always try new things.
Yeah.
Like I very rarely sit still, so I'll try and push my boundaries.
And when did you start to work with more of a language than HTML? Was that soon after?
No, it wasn't actually, because then I got back to Denmark and I went and I did the high school type thing equivalent. I built, I think I built a website there briefly, but I didn't do much. I had so much opportunities to guide. I worked for a movie theater and they were implementing automatic ticketing, where you go online and pick your seat and stuff like that. So I was involved in that, but not in the coding part of it. And then I started working for Orange, the phone company.
Yep.
And I did all of the technical specs for the billing system, part of the billing system. But it got developed somewhere else, and then I tested it. And that's when I found out I want to do that middle bit. That was when I really knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah, well, we always call those analysts that would write the specs, right? That you would talk to the customer, and then you'd figure out what requirements were, and then you'd feed them to somebody.
Yeah, the title, I can't remember the title. I think it was systems developer or something like that, because I was developing the system.
The system itself, yeah.
But that was my first exposure to really corporate style, big, infrastructure type
enterprise.
Yeah. And I found that very, very interesting. Although the things I was doing at the time was incredibly boring.
Sure. Especially what you were building probably was,
It was interesting. How do you make sure that you don't bill, 4 million, not 4 million, say 2 million people, quarter of a cent too much every month, that sort of thing. It's a lot of testing.
It all adds up eventually.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So as we all learned in Superman 4. I don't know if you've seen Superman 4, but it's the whole plot of the movie.
That's true. Yeah. I remember. Yeah, exactly.
Awful movie. But, and so were you still at Orange when you started to program?
Yeah, because that's when I started. I took some classes around, I did C++. I remember finding arrays incredibly difficult. I don't know why. I just have this memory.
Yeah.
And I did it with a friend, and he helped me because he was an actual programmer at the time.
Oh, nice.
So I had some insight to that. And then I was lucky enough to get laid off, which meant that I...
and is this when you got into legal trouble with Denmark that you had to leave?
No, that was the trouble with the Swedish authorities at that time. Oh. And then... No, my girlfriend at the time wanted to move to Australia. She was born in Australia, and she wanted to do a course here, study. So I went, I'll do that. Yeah. So we basically sold everything, moved to Australia, and studied.
And you meant to come back? Was it you were going to go for a year?
I was going to go for 3 years, the degree. Nice. And then at the end of the 3 years, I started talking to a guy in Melbourne. And then suddenly he offered me a job in Melbourne.
Nice.
So I moved. And then it sort of went from there.
Nice.
But I got more and more and more into development. And I've got to the point now where, hang on, just because you say it's right doesn't mean it is, sort of thing. Right. Initially, you just suck up everything. You do.
You assume that everyone you work with is the brightest guy anywhere, and then later you find out
they weren't.
Yeah, that reverse Hungarian notation isn't a good idea.
Who doesn't love Hungarian notation? Oh. So
I don't. Okay.
So that was it sort of evolved like over, it's probably almost 20 years now it's evolved.
Wow.
Very slowly. In the last probably 4 years, it really started taking off in terms of having goals and aims and stuff of what I wanted to do.
Well, you do Pluralsight videos now. Did that start by being active in your local community and that sort of thing?
It did. I saw Pluralsight, say 2 years ago, something like that, about 2 years ago, as a source of expert knowledge.
Right.
Not that all of it I could use, but same with everything. You pick where you can use and you leave the rest.
Yeah.
So, and at that point in time, I was like, I didn't even consider being an author. And then I started this goal exercise of what do I actually want to achieve? And I got to a point where I said, actually, I want to be a Pluralsight author. Why can't I be a Pluralsight author?
Sure.
That was what's there to stopping me. And that's when I set a goal, I think it was the May of 2013.
Nice. I
said by the end of July, I want to be in a position of being considered or an audition.
Yeah.
Or however, I didn't know how it worked.
Audition, yeah.
And actually by the beginning of July, I was accepted as an author.
Nice.
So put your mind to it, right? And it'll happen.
Yeah, goals are an interesting thing. I went to a conference in Boston many years ago now, and I came back from the conference and told my then girlfriend that I wanted to speak at these conferences. I just liked the idea of it, that there was this, gravitas. I never graduated from university, so I always I had sort of a chip on my shoulder about it anyway. So I thought, this would give me some credit, and I could then I wouldn't be ever insecure, which never really gone away. But that's a whole nother talk. And so I started writing because I knew that was the way you got to speak at conferences.
Exactly.
And it wasn't the reverse, that I wanted to write, therefore I would try to speak. It always felt like I sort of backed into it. And out of that, sort of came training and a lot of the other stuff I did. And I found that, in many ways I enjoy that as much as I do the programming. I don't ever really want to get my hands out of the bits, but it really gives me that opportunity to enjoy, as technologies come in and to kind of see where this industry is going.
Yeah, that's what I love about it.
It just really
I love the whole idea of teaching someone, because by teaching something, you make it much clearer to yourself as well.
Well, what do you think about the problem of teaching someone something? I mean,
there's
back when I started doing training, there were really two kind of gigs that I would get. I would get one where they would say, we have 3 guys, we'd like you to sit down and walk them through some things.
Mm-hmm.
And then other guys, they would say, we're going to set up a classroom and we're going to bring 15 guys in and you're going to teach for 3 days, right? And those are very different experiences.
Absolutely.
They're not solving the same problem at all. And so I don't know whether you do a little of both, but when you're teaching a course, whether it's Pluralsight or face-to-face or college level or whatever it is, there is something about how to teach. And I wonder what your experience is in building a course. What do you think about when you're building a course?
Well, so I've been a tutor for young kids. I've been tutor for junior students. I've written instructional manuals for certain users in companies and stuff like that. So I saw Pluralsight I've never done video authoring.
Sure.
Never done it.
Have you done face-to-face training before?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what I'm struggling with now, because after I finish the course I'm currently doing, I want to do a kids course.
Yeah.
And I still have not clear in my head, how do I teach kids by video?
Yeah.
Because I teach kids by showing them and telling them, oh, no, don't do it right there, do it over here.
Right.
Face to face. And that works.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge, and I like that, right? So to get back to your question, authoring Pluralsight courses, I try and figure out who my users or who my viewers would be.
Yeah.
I have some stuff I want to tell and I want to show off.
Sure.
That I think is important. But if my core users are single developers, then it's no use telling them that they need to have a QA team.
Right.
You need to know who your audience is.
Absolutely.
So that's probably where I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out, who am I talking to.
Yeah. And how do you know who they are?
I don't.
Yeah.
But I use Twitter.
Yeah.
I use local. The problem with Windows Phone is that the dev community is not that big.
Right.
So there's only a limited amount of people you can ask. But having said that, I keep finding new people.
Yeah.
They keep popping up everywhere.
Yeah. In Windows Phone, actually, I've spent a lot of time on the Reddit Windows Phone area.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
It's a lot of users and a few developers.
Okay.
But it's a very interesting community there.
Yeah.
And it's almost real time. It's almost like old BBSs, because people are so sort of animated about that. And I've had a lot of developers there that went, I just released this. Can you test this for me, because I don't have the other 14 phones, right?
Yeah.
And so it's become a kind of an interesting community. It's small, but it's a very active one, which is, with a small developer base like Windows Phone, as we both know, has. It's always nice to find those guys.
I mean, my mains, there's 2 sayings I love, right? Mm-hmm. One is by Henry Ford, which is very famous. And it's whether you think you succeed or fail. So whether you think you can accomplish something or not, you'll succeed, right?
Right.
So whatever you put your mind to, you'll succeed. That's probably paraphrase, because I can't remember the exact word.
Yeah.
The other one is, see what you can get into, not out of.
Oh, that's good.
Because I always put my hand up. Like with the talk I just did for the authors, absolutely, I'll do that. And tonight there's a presentation karaoke. I don't know if you've seen that.
I didn't know I thought it was just karaoke.
No, it's presentation karaoke. So there's slide decks prepared, and you got to talk to them. You don't know what they are. You just got to talk to them, right? So I'm going to do that if they want me to, right?
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
it's always about pushing yourself, and especially, and this is where a lot of people stop, is, oh, I don't know if I can do it. I'm a bit scared about doing that. That's when you should do it, right?
Yeah. I was just actually talking to John Papa, who on the podcast just previous to this, about that very idea that I feel like if you're not scared, you're not growing. There's this whole idea that if, you don't have to be petrified. I don't mean to push people that far, but if you're in a job and you're comfortable and you care about being a better developer, right? And I don't, that's not to be demeaning at all. There's some people who software development's their job, and they have families and other things that they devote a lot of time to, and so it's a means to an end, and that's great for them. But the guys that are trying to figure out how to be better. If you're comfortable in your job,
you're not getting improving.
Yeah, you're not. And often if you're the brightest guy at your job, you're not going to improve either.
You're in the wrong job.
Right.
Yep. That's why I work where I work, because the people I work with now, I'm very grateful for. They're just some incredible minds. It's
Who do you work for?
I work for Kyandra IT in Melbourne.
Oh, okay.
Smallish consultancy, but we were Microsoft Partner of the Year in 2009.
Nice.
Global partner, which is what really
took off.
Yeah, it took off. So we can really pick and choose who we hire now.
Nice.
It's really cool. And it still has this family sort of feeling, and it's all about staff and
getting the right people that fit.
That's
not
right.
Just
it seemed very much like Pluralsight.
Nice.
3 guys started that knew each other from high school. That's the whole story, and they still own it, still privately owned.
Nice.
It's a very cool place to work.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's
there's I forgot your question now. Your question it was.
I don't know that I had a question at that.
That was one there that I was going to answer, but anyway.
We'll edit that little bit out to make my job a little harder.
That's fine.
So do you, at your job now, do you mentor new recruits, as it were? People that are coming in, they're trying to understand whether it's the culture or development or...
I think we all do a little bit of it.
Sure.
Because I'm not, I don't claim to be the strongest developer around.
Sure.
There's some of the guys there that are, the solutions they come with, sometimes you have to tell them, no, you got to make it simpler.
Yeah.
Because they're just at such a high level that what they come up with is so brilliant that no one understands it.
Right. Especially if you have to hand it off like you often have to do at consulting companies,
That's right? Exactly.
Someone else has to maintain it, and you're not going to be there to do it.
So, yeah, exactly. and so there's a couple of guys that are so brilliant that I just pick whatever I can everywhere. But then my strength is a lot of it is, public speaking, writing, teaching, that sort of stuff. So I help them. There's a couple of guys that I've helped in terms of some guidelines about public speaking. I've done Toastmasters for a couple of years.
That's always a good experience for people wanting to speak. Yeah. And are you encourage them to get into the community as well? I mean,
if they want to, absolutely. There's we started our own user group at Kyandra.
Oh, nice.
So we're trying to mix it up with getting people from the community as well as our own staff to talk. And 40 people is a good start. 20, 30, 40 people. That's where people feel comfortable trying out.
Yeah.
So that's...
Especially if some are peers, right? Some that know who they are and they don't have to prove themselves.
Exactly. And what they talk about, something they know, something they are passionate about. It makes it a lot easier. And
if they can figure out pretty quickly whether it's something they like or don't like, right? If they get up there and they're like, I spent a long time prepping this and I didn't really get a payoff, then that's not what they want to do. And then some other people you kind of see blossom into that, that public persona that I think helps, especially communities. I'm a big advocate of the local user groups and all that as for kind of building that and sharing the wealth.
I'm starting a new user group. It's obviously Windows Phone, but I want to do a mobile developer user group in Melbourne. So that's going to start probably end of March.
Nice.
With hopefully some support from Microsoft and Nokia. Hint, hint. And that hopefully will spawn more people to get into it.
Nice.
And also share ideas and all that sort of stuff.
So do how do user groups work in Melbourne? I know that in much of Europe, the user groups are usually something you pay a yearly due to be sort of part of. Whereas in the United States, usually it's sponsors that are paying for the pizza and stuff and kind of get together. Same in Australia?
It's all sponsored.
Oh, okay.
I'm fortunate to be part of DDD Melbourne.
Nice.
Which is a yearly conference we do. myself, and Irene. No, myself, Alex Mackey, and Mahesh Krishna. If you know any of those guys, the MVPs, I think.
I think so. I was asked to speak there a few years ago. I just couldn't make it all the way down.
Yeah,
so,
that's cool. So with those two guys, there's three of us, Alex being the main driver of it. We do this conference once a year for 350 people thereabouts.
Nice.
But it's all volunteer. Mm-hmm. It's nominal fee to attend, $25, something like that for a whole day. It's all based around the community. So anyone can submit a talk, and then anyone can vote on those talks.
Nice.
So we don't choose what the talks are.
So it's more like the way code camps work in the States, I would guess.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, there's some events like Code Stock, in Tennessee, they do that exact thing. Everyone submits, everyone votes.
Yeah,
and
it works so well. Like we started it this year, we're the 5th year we're doing it.
Nice.
The first year we had 120 people, and then we went to about 200, 250.
Nice.
This year we had 320, and we're probably going to be 350 this year.
Awesome.
There's something Alex was doing in the UK when he was living there.
Oh, nice.
And he brought it out, and I got involved, and it's
cool.
just so rewarding.
Now, is it called DDD because of domain-driven design, or is it just...
It's I think it came from the good old bald man himself and his talk about developers.
Ah, interesting. Yeah,
the official name is Developer Melbourne. And there's also a Sydney version and a Brisbane version.
Nice.
There's a few in UK.
Nice.
They're around a few places.
Nice.
And it's very rewarding. But because of that, because we get sponsors, any profit or any money that's left over, we then use that to sponsor user groups for pizza and for drinks. And
that whole thing.
Like anything in Australia is pizza and beer. I don't know if it's the same in the US, but...
No beer.
No beer. You could not get developers in Australia that had beer.
We can't get developers in the United States because we don't have beer. We always have beer after the event. We'll go someplace and get a drink. But getting into some of the corporate locations, there's always
some legislation-wise?
No, it's liability. A lot of companies are worried about liability. They get drunk and then they wreck their car, and then Microsoft or whoever is hosting is in trouble.
So in Australia, it's a bit more liberal. So that the user group side of things, we do have some way of funding stuff.
Nice.
We still rely on Microsoft for venues.
Sure.
Venue is always the hard one.
It is.
It's always
and it's
the
an expensive one.
Yeah. So with DDD, we like to have a really good partner with Swing Venues at University. So that's working well. And Canada, we have it in our own staff.
Oh, nice. So that makes it easy.
It does.
Yeah.
But it's always an issue.
It always is.
It is.
Well, this has been a great talk. I appreciate you doing the podcast.
No, thanks for inviting me.
And your 22-hour flight here, was that right?
It was door-to-door was 27.
27. Yeah. Wow, you are more committed than I am. I drove. It was 4 hours for me.
I did bring 2 fully charged laptops, and I had a Kindle.
Wow. Yeah, we're doing a lot of flying the next year, so we're sort of doing that build. We're doing that several layers of product with us. So
are you going to Scandinavia?
We are.
All right, bring cash.
I know, it's very expensive.
Lots of it.
Last time I was in Copenhagen, I went out to dinner by myself at this pretty nice restaurant, and I got it, and it wasn't until I got home I did the little calculation. I was like, that was a $400. That wasn't worth $400, but
that was including drinks
meal.
and stuff, right?
Yeah,
especially drinks. It's weird though because beer in Denmark is really cheap.
Yeah,
you go to a restaurant and the price just goes
crazy.
I was invited by Nokia to do a hackathon in Sweden in August for Windows Phone. We were doing some prototyping for the 1020, and we were staying at a hotel, and my partner was with me, and we wanted to get a plastic shopping bag of washing done. It was Saturday. Okay, there's a surcharge. Yeah, fair enough.
Sure.
$160 for one bag of washing.
I was in Bulgaria at the Sheraton because it's a long story how I ended up at the Sheraton instead of one of the little boutique hotels, but it is Bulgaria. And the little laundry slip, I'm not sure why I'm telling this in public, but I'll go ahead and say it. The little laundry slip wasn't clear about whether it was euros or the local currency, which I can't remember. They do. They accept.
Accept it. Okay.
They accept them in a lot of places. It's not their official currency.
No.
They don't have their own version. I mean, their own. But they accept them, especially in Sofia, because so many tourists.
Yeah.
And because of the numbers, I assumed it was the local currency, which is about 13 to every euro.
Okay. Yeah.
And no, when I got the $260 bill for a small thing of laundry, I freaked. $260.
Yeah.
I said what you charged me to clean my underwear is more than they're worth.
That's what I told
Absolutely.
the hotel in Sweden. Exactly.
I'm like, this is insane.
Because we were expecting, maybe $60, $70 because there's surcharges and fees and stuff.
On a Saturday.
Yeah,
and all
exactly.
That. Yeah.
Jeez, yeah. So
lesson learned. Lesson learned.
Expensive lesson.
Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me on the podcast. And
Thanks for
have a lovely